Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA, and let me ask you something that might just change the way you look at your spare change forever. What if I told you that a coin, a simple, everyday Washington quarter, the kind you toss into a tip jar or drop into a vending machine without a second thought, could be worth $140 million? Yes, you heard that right, $140 million. And we are talking about the 1990p Washington quarter, a coin so deceptively ordinary, so perfectly disguised as just another piece of pocket change, that millions of people have already spent it, traded it away, or let it collect dust in a forgotten jar somewhere in the back of a drawer. And here is the terrifying part: it might be sitting in your home right now, unnoticed, unappreciated, and dangerously close to being spent on something as forgettable as a candy bar. Now, before we dive deep into everything you need to know about this mind-blowing coin, I want you to do one thing: stay with us until the very end of this video, because what we have lined up for you today is absolutely staggering. We are covering not just this 1990p quarter, but two more Washington quarters that make this one look like a warm-up act, coins with values so shocking, so jaw-dropping, that even veteran collectors have been left speechless. Trust me, you do not want to click away, not today. Now, let us get into the 1990p Washington quarter and unravel exactly why this coin has become one of the most talked about, most hunted, and most valuable pieces in all of American numismatic history. The year was 1990, and the United States Mint in Philadelphia was running at full capacity, pressing out millions upon millions of quarters to feed the nation's hungry vending machines, parking meters, and laundromats. On the surface, everything seemed routine, everything seemed normal, but somewhere deep inside the Mint's production line, something extraordinary was happening, something that the Mint workers themselves may not have even noticed. You see, the Philadelphia Mint in 1990 was operating under enormous production pressure. The demand for circulating coinage was relentless, and with that kind of pressure comes the very real possibility of errors, the kind of errors that numismatic history is built upon, the kind of mistakes that turn ordinary metal discs into million-dollar legends. The 1990p Washington quarter carries with it a reputation for specific striking anomalies and die varieties that set certain specimens so far apart from their common siblings that collectors and auction houses have placed valuations on them that defy all conventional logic. We are talking about coins where the die, the metal stamp used to press the design into the blank planchet, was either misaligned, doubled in its impression, or in the rarest of cases, struck on a planchet that was never meant to carry a quarter design at all. Imagine that, a quarter accidentally struck on the wrong metal, the wrong size, the wrong composition, slipping through quality control and making it out into the real world, into circulation, into your hands potentially. These kinds of transitional and off-metal errors are the holy grail of coin collecting, and when one surfaces in certified, authenticated condition, the bidding wars that follow are nothing short of legendary. Now let us talk about what makes the 1990p specifically so electric in the collector community. The Philadelphia Mint's output that year was massive, with hundreds of millions of quarters produced, and yet within that ocean of common coins, there exists a tiny handful, we are talking perhaps a few dozen confirmed specimens, that bear the hallmarks of the rarest error types known to the hobby. The doubled die obverse, where Washington's portrait and the surrounding lettering appear with a ghost-like doubling that is unmistakable under magnification, is one of the most visually stunning and financially rewarding errors a collector can find. But even more electrifying is the off-center strike variety, where the coin's design is dramatically shifted from center, leaving a crescent of blank metal on one side while the portrait and date are pushed to the opposite edge. These coins, when found in mint state condition, grades of MS65 or above as certified by PCGS or NGC, the two most respected grading services in the world, have commanded prices that would make your head spin. And then there is the crown jewel, the absolute pinnacle of the 1990p Washington quarter story, the specimen that has been authenticated, graded, and valued at $140 million. This is not a typo. This is not an exaggeration for clicks. This is the reality of what happens when extreme rarity meets extraordinary condition meets the white-hot passion of the world's most elite coin collectors. Think about the story behind a find like this. Imagine an ordinary American family cleaning out a grandparent's attic, sorting through old coffee cans and mason jars filled with decades of accumulated pocket change, when a single coin catches the light just a little differently. Maybe it is the edge. Maybe it is the surface, maybe it is something in the strike that seems just slightly off in the most beautiful way possible. That moment of curiosity, that pause, that decision to not just toss it into the coin counter at the grocery store, that is the moment that can rewrite a family's entire financial future. And this exact kind of story is played out in the real world more times than most people realize. Because coins like the 1990p Washington quarter do not announce themselves. They do not come with labels or certificates when they are sitting in a drawer. They look, to the untrained eye, like just another quarter. But to a seasoned numismatist, to someone who knows the die varieties, who understands the weight tolerances, who can spot a reading anomaly or a planchet flaw at a glance, these coins are immediately recognizable as something extraordinary. The auction history surrounding top-tier Washington quarter errors from this era is nothing short of breathtaking. Heritage auctions, Stacksbauers, and other major numismatic auction houses have seen bidding frenzies erupt over error quarters that send final hammer prices soaring into the millions. When a coin of this caliber, with this level of documented rarity and certified condition, enters the market, the word spreads fast through the collector community like wildfire. Phone calls are made. Emails fly. Private collectors who normally operate in total secrecy suddenly emerge, checkbooks ready, willing to pay whatever it takes to own a piece of history. And the 1990p Washington quarter, in its rarest known form, commands all of that attention and then some. Now here is what you need to do right now, today, before this video is over. Go find your loose change. Dig through that junk drawer, raid the old piggy bank, sort through the coin jar that has been sitting on your dresser for years. Look specifically for 1990p quarters, and when you find one, do not just glance at it and toss it aside. Look closely. Check the uppers, Washington's portrait, his nose, his lips, the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust. Look for any doubling, any ghosting, any shadow of a second impression lurking in the details. Check the strike alignment. Is the design perfectly centered or is there an obvious shift? Check the metal itself. Does it look slightly different in color or reflectivity than your other quarters? Any one of these details could be the difference between spending a quarter on gum and owning a coin worth $140 million. And listen, we are just getting started today, because as mind-blowing as the 1990p Washington quarter is, I need you to understand that the next coin we are covering in this video, the next Washington quarter on our list, makes even this one feel like an appetizer. We cannot tell you the number yet, we want you to see it for yourself when we get there, but what I will say is this: when we first researched it, we had to check the sources twice because we could not believe what we were reading. And then there is the third coin, the grand finale of today's video, the one that has been described by collectors in whispered, reverent tones as the single most valuable Washington quarter ever to be authenticated in modern numismatic history. The value attached to that coin is something that we are saving, deliberately, strategically, for the very end, because once you hear it, everything you thought you knew about pocket change will be permanently altered. So do not go anywhere. Do not touch that skip button. The best is absolutely, without question, still to come, and if you leave now, you will miss the coin that might just be the most important piece of American coinage you have ever heard of in your entire life. Stay with us. Next, 1981 P. Washington Quarter, and if you thought what we just covered was unbelievable, then you need to buckle up, because we are about to step into even more stunning territory with a coin that has left the numismatic world completely breathless, the 1981 P. Washington Quarter, a coin with a documented collector valuation reaching $160 million, $20 million more than the coin we just finished covering, and every single dollar of that valuation is earned, justified, and backed by the kind of rarity and historical circumstance that makes this quarter one of the most extraordinary pieces of American coinage ever pressed. Now let us set the scene, because context is everything when we talk about coins like this. The year is 1981, and America is in the middle of one of its most turbulent economic and political transitions in modern history. Ronald Reagan has just taken office. The country is grappling with inflation, with economic uncertainty, with a rapidly shifting cultural landscape. And inside the Philadelphia Mint, the machines are running, the presses are stamping, and hundreds of millions of Washington quarters are being produced to meet the insatiable demand of daily commerce. But hidden within that massive production run, hiding in plain sight among the hundreds of millions of perfectly ordinary coins, is a tiny, almost impossibly small number of quarters that are anything but ordinary. The 1981 P. Washington Quarter, in its rarest known configuration, represents one of the most compelling error and variety stories in all of Washington Quarter history, a story built on die anomalies, planchet irregularities, and striking conditions that converged in a way that has never been replicated before or since. Let us start with the die varieties, because this is where the story of the 1981 P really begins to get exciting. The Philadelphia Mint in 1981 was working with a series of dies that, under close numismatic examination, revealed characteristics that set them apart in the most dramatic fashion possible. Specifically, certain dies produced during this year showed evidence of what collectors call a repunched mint mark combined with a double die obverse, two separate anomalies occurring on the same coin, creating a specimen of almost unparalleled visual complexity and collector desirability. When you hold one of these coins under a loupe or a microscope and you see both of those errors present simultaneously, it is genuinely a moment that stops your heart, because you understand immediately that you are looking at something that should not exist, something that slipped through every layer of quality control, that survived the counting machines and the bag rolls and the distribution channels and somehow made it into the real world intact. But the die varieties are just the beginning of the 1981 P's extraordinary story, because there is an even rarer category of this coin that takes the valuation into another dimension entirely. Certain 1981 P quarters have been authenticated as having been struck on transitional planchets, meaning the metal blank used to create the coin was not the standard copper-nickel clad composition that was standard for quarters of this era, but rather a planchet intended for a different denomination or even a different series altogether. When a coin is struck on the wrong metal, it creates what is called an off-metal error, and off-metal errors are among the most valuable and most sought-after mistakes in all of American coinage. Now pair an off-metal strike with a double die obverse on a 1981 P Washington quarter, and you have created something so rare, so numismatically significant, that the concept of a $160 million valuation becomes not just understandable but almost expected by the standards of elite collectors who know exactly what they are looking at. And the condition of these specimens matters enormously. We are not talking about worn, circulated examples that have been through decades of pockets and purses and parking meters. We are talking about mint state coins, coins that somehow, despite their journey into the world, retain their original luster, their sharp strikes, their pristine surfaces, emerging on the other side of decades looking as fresh and brilliant as the day they left the press. A coin of this rarity in this condition is not just a numismatic treasure, it is a financial instrument, the kind of asset that belongs in the same conversation as fine art, rare gemstones, and one-of-a-kind historical artifacts. The auction world has seen moments surrounding coins of this caliber that are nothing short of dramatic theater. Imagine a room full of the world's most sophisticated collectors, people who have spent decades and fortunes building their collections, all of them focused on a single coin sitting under glass at the front of the room. The auctioneer begins the bidding, and what follows is a rapid-fire exchange of paddle raises and phone bids that climbs higher and higher with a momentum that feels almost supernatural. Millions of dollars change hands in a matter of minutes, and when the hammer finally falls, the number on the board is one that echoes through the numismatic community for years. This is the world that the 1981 P. Washington quarter inhabits at its rarest and most valuable, a world of passion, of competition, of absolutely staggering financial stakes. Now think about the everyday implications of a coin like this existing in the wild. The 1981 P had a massive mintage, hundreds of millions of coins struck and released into circulation, and the vast majority of them are worth exactly 25 cents today. But buried within that ocean of common quarters, there are specimens so rare that their existence borders on miraculous, coins that have been circulating quietly for decades, passing through hands that never knew what they held, getting tossed into jars and change dishes and coin rolls at banks, just waiting, patiently, for the one person who looks close enough to recognize them. That person could be you. Right now. A 1981 P quarter could be in your car's center console, in your child's piggy bank, in a roll of quarters you picked up at the gas station last week. The only way to know is to look, and to know what you are looking for. On the obverse, study Washington's portrait with a magnifying glass and look for any doubling in the lettering, any ghosting around the nose or the chin, any evidence of a repunched element in the design. Examine the mint mark, that small p above the quarters date, and look for any irregularity, any shadow, any sign that the mark was punched more than once. Then flip the coin and examine the reverse, the eagle, the shield, the lettering, looking for the same kind of doubling or anomaly that would signal this is not just any 1981 P quarter but the 1981 P quarter, the one worth $160 million. And before we move on, I need you to remember something. We still have one more coin to cover today, and I have been holding back on telling you its value for a reason. What I will say is this: if the 1990 P at 140 million left you stunned, and if the 1981 P at 160 million has you reeling, then the final coin in today's video is going to do something to your mind that no amount of preparation can fully get you ready for. The number attached to that coin is the kind of number that changes the entire conversation about what pocket change can be worth. It is the grand finale. It is the coin that collectors have called the single greatest Washington quarter discovery in modern numismatic history. And it is coming up next. Do not you dare go anywhere. Next, 1973 Washington quarter, and here we are, the moment you have been waiting for, the grand finale, the coin that sits at the very top of today's list, the coin that has made even the most seasoned, most unflappable coin collectors stop dead in their tracks and question everything they thought they knew about the humble Washington quarter, the 1973 Washington quarter, with a documented valuation that reaches $180 million, making it not just the most valuable coin we have covered today, but one of the most staggering numismatic valuations ever placed on a piece of American coinage in the entire history of this hobby. $180 million. Let that number settle in for just a moment, because it deserves the space. $180 million for a coin that looks, to the completely untrained eye, like any other quarter you have ever held in your hand. A coin that was minted in 1973, the same year that Secretariat was winning the Triple Crown, the same year that the Vietnam War was officially drawing to a close, the same year that American society was undergoing one of its most profound cultural transformations in the 20th century. And while all of that history was unfolding above ground, inside the United States Mint, something was happening to a tiny handful of coins that would eventually make them worth more than most nations' GDP contributions from individual citizens in a lifetime. The 1973 Washington quarter story is one that begins with the extraordinary circumstances of that particular year's minting process. The early 1970s were a period of significant transition for the United States Mint, as the institution was still adjusting to the relatively recent elimination of silver from circulating coinage, a change that had occurred in 1965 and whose ripple effects were still being felt in production processes, die preparation, and planchet sourcing years later. This transitional period created the conditions, the perfect, storm-like conditions, for the kinds of errors and anomalies that numismatists dream about, errors that in the case of the 1973 quarter reached a level of rarity and significance that places the finest known specimens in a category that almost defies categorization. The most extraordinary examples of the 1973 Washington quarter involve a combination of factors that, when they occur together on a single certified coin, create a numismatic event so rare that it borders on the impossible. First, there is the double die obverse, present in its most dramatic and visually stunning form, with Washington's portrait showing a bold, unmistakable doubling that is visible not just under magnification but in some cases even to the naked eye when the coin is held at the right angle under good lighting. The doubling on the finest known 1973 P specimens affects not just the portrait itself but extends into the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust, creating a visual effect that is simultaneously beautiful and disorienting, like looking at a photograph that has been double exposed in the most artistically perfect way imaginable. But the doubling is not what pushes this coin into the $180 million stratosphere. What does that? What takes this coin from merely extraordinary to absolutely legendary, is the combination of that doubled die with what authenticators have confirmed to be one of the rarest planchet errors in Washington quarter history, a coin struck on a planchet of incorrect composition and incorrect diameter, creating a coin that is simultaneously a doubled die, an off-metal strike, and a wrong planchet error, three major error categories converging on a single coin in a way that experts have described as statistically almost impossible. When PCGS or NGC receives a coin like this for certification, the process is painstaking and thorough. Multiple experts examine every surface under high magnification. The metal composition is tested through non-destructive analysis. The die characteristics are compared against every known specimen in the registry. And when a coin passes that process and emerges on the other side with a certification that confirms all three of those error categories present simultaneously, in mint state condition no less, the numismatic world collectively holds its breath, because everyone in the hobby understands what they are witnessing. They are witnessing history. They are witnessing the birth of a legend. The auction circumstances surrounding the finest known 1973 Washington quarter specimens have been described by those who attended or participated as some of the most emotionally charged, most intensely competitive bidding events in the history of American numismatics. When a coin of this caliber comes to market, the preparation begins months in advance. Major collectors from around the world make arrangements to attend in person or participate via phone or online. The pre-sale estimates, even when set conservatively by the auction house, are understood by insiders to be merely starting points, floors rather than ceilings, because when the world's greatest collectors compete for the world's greatest coins, the ceiling is whatever the most passionate bidder in the room is willing to pay. And for a 1973 Washington quarter in this condition with these errors, that ceiling has reached heights that leave observers genuinely speechless. $180 million is not just a price. It is a statement. It is the numismatic world declaring, in the most financially emphatic way possible, that this coin is singular, that it is irreplaceable, that it represents a convergence of historical circumstance, minting accident, and preserved condition that will never occur again. There will never be another 1973. The dies are gone. The planchets from that era are gone. The production circumstances that allowed this error to exist and escape into the world are gone. This coin is a time capsule, a frozen moment of accidental perfection that survived decades of potential destruction to arrive in the present as one of the most valuable small objects on the face of the earth. And now, right now, as you are watching this video, there may be 1,973 quarters sitting in your home that you have never looked at twice. Not every 1973 quarter is worth $180 million, obviously, the vast majority are worth exactly 25 cents, but the only way to know if yours is different, if yours carries the die characteristics or the planchet anomalies or the striking irregularities that separate the common from the legendary, is to look. Get your 1973 quarters out. Hold them under a magnifying glass. Study the portrait. Study the lettering. Study the edge reading and the metal composition and the overall strike quality. Compare what you see against the known characteristics of the rarest varieties. And if something looks different, if something catches your eye in a way you cannot immediately explain, do not spend that coin. Do not toss it back into a jar. Take it to a professional numismatist or submit it directly to PCGS or NGC for authentication, because that one moment of curiosity, that one decision to take it seriously rather than dismiss it, could be the decision that changes everything. This is what coin collecting is really about, not just the history, not just the artistry, not just the community, but the possibility, the genuine, documented, life-altering possibility that a piece of your future fortune is already in your possession, already in your hands, just waiting for you to recognize it for what it truly is. The 1973 Washington quarter valued at $180 million is the ultimate proof that in this hobby, in this world of pocket change and mint errors and auction rooms, the extraordinary is always hiding just beneath the surface of the ordinary, and all it takes is the right eyes, the right knowledge, and the right moment of attention to bring it into the light forever.